Hello everyone, you're on the In Google Sheets channel and today we have our 10th lesson on Google Sheets. In this lesson, we'll get to know a very cool and powerful function, query. Once you learn how it works, you'll be able to handle large volumes of data from different sheets. And the best part? You will be doing it all with just one formula. In this video, we'll go through the basics of this function. I'll show you how it works, how you can pull data from multiple sheets into it, and we'll also build a small analytical report. Simple, but already quite functional. So don't forget to hit like and subscribe to the channel. Let's go. So let's suppose we have a set of data for certain months. In my case, January, February, and March. You might have more. And what I need to do is calculate the total number of sales made by my sellers for each of these months. Here I've got sales dates, I've got the seller's name, the total sales amount, and the quantity of sales for each month. And I want to calculate the total sum of all these sales across all 3 months on a separate sheet. Now, since I have 3 separate tabs, I run into a problem. I can't simply pull all my sellers from these 3 sheets, place them into a single analytics sheet, and use the SUMEF formulas we covered in previous lessons to calculate totals based on a specific range from a specific sheet. That won't work, at least not in this format. First, I need to gather all the data from those sheets. So, let's collect everything into a new sheet called Analytics. How do we do this? We have our curly brackets. I've already talked about them before, but let me quickly repeat. These curly brackets are used to collect sets of data that we place inside them. This can be the result of other formulas or just raw data pulled from specific ranges. And right now, I'm going to pull data from specific ranges. Let's start by selecting the data on the January sheet. Make sure to use a semicolon here. Not a comma, but a semicolon. Next, we add February, again followed by a semicolon, and then March. At this point, it pulled 2,000 rows for us. Let's make the range absolute, and we're not going to add any specific numbers. And then we close it off with a closing curly bracket. Press Enter. What do we get? At first glance, it might seem like nothing happened. Only the data from January appears. But that's not actually the case. Because we used an absolute range, it means it pulled all the rows that exist on the January sheet. And all rows means starting from row 1 all the way down to row 1000. If we add another 1,000 rows to our sheets, the formula will now pull 2,000 rows. Let's test it. Scroll down to row 1000, and there it is. On row 1001, we can see the data from March starting to appear. And somewhere beyond that, around row 2001, we'll find the third batch of my data. It's not very convenient, I agree. But now I'm going to show you how to fix that using our query function. Let's start writing it, and we'll place it right before our curly brackets. Type query, press enter. As you can see, the tooltip tells us that the first argument of this function is the data set we want to pass into it, and we've already got that data set. It's right here inside our curly brackets. So we go ahead and complete that part. That's done. Now we put a comma, and here comes the query itself. The query function works using SQL-like syntax. So if you want to use it effectively, it's worth learning at least the basics of this language. But don't worry, I'll walk you through the core parts in this video as much as I can. The query language is always written in double quotation marks because it's a text query, and the first thing we write is select. The name speaks for itself. I'm telling it to select something. So let's type col1. That means I want to select column 1. Now let's close the function and see what happens. As you can see, the function has selected col1 from the entire dataset that I passed into it. Right now, we've selected col1, which is just the first dataset. Now, let's get rid of that empty space between each month, between every dataset that we selected. We'll do that using the where operator, and we write column 1 is not null. You can see that the error highlight disappeared, which is a good sign. Let's press enter and see what happens. Now what we've got is that all the dates from January, February and March have been combined one after the other. So what exactly did I do? I told the formula to display everything from column 1, but only where column 1 is not empty, where there are no blank values. And that's exactly what it did. It showed me everything that's not blank. And if you take a look, there's nothing showing on row 1000, meaning no extra data was pulled there. Same thing on row 2000, there's no data, so everything is working as expected. Now let's bring back all of our data. We can do that very easily. We just remove this part of the query. Leave only the first part, so let's delete that. Press enter, and now we get our full data set. All the data from all the sheets. And if we go to the February sheet, and let's say we add another seller with a different date in February, just like that, you'll see that our data here updates automatically, shifting everything down, and Alice now appears under February. I think this part is clear. Let's move on. We've learned that we can select specific columns and we can also apply certain conditions. In fact, we can write multiple conditions one after another. We've already written one condition, and if we add OR or AND here, we can write another one. But in this video we won't go into that. Those are more complex queries. For now, I'll show you something a bit simpler. Let's go ahead and modify the query by adding col2, col3 and col4. That way we're selecting all of our columns. Press enter and visually nothing changes, but I'll explain why we did that in a moment. Right now there's no analysis going on here. Why? Because we're just seeing a bunch of raw data, that's all. So what can we do to actually start analyzing it? Well, one option is to take this column, for example, and extract a unique list of sellers, just like this, using the unique function. If you haven't seen it before, it's a simple function for removing duplicates from a dataset. You paste in a range of data and it returns only the unique values. Now we're left with 3 unique sellers. From here you could use SUMIF. Select the data you want to look for and sum the corresponding range. Then just drag the formula down for the rest and it will work correctly. But I promised you that we do all of this using just one formula, without any extra steps or additional functions. Everything in a single query formula. And to make sure we're doing everything right, let's move what we've got so far off to the side for now, just temporarily. And then we'll delete it later. Now let's take a look at what we can do inside our query function. Here's what we can do. We don't really need the column with the dates right now, so what do? We simply remove it, press enter, and you'll see that we're left with just our dataset without the dates. That's fine. We don't need them at the moment. Now I want to calculate the totals from column 3 and column 4. By the way, as you may have noticed, once we removed the first column, our previous formula stopped working correctly. So let's remove that as well. Clear it out. Our task now is to sum column 3 and column 4, and those are the ones right here. How do we do that? In the query function, there are similar commands available. They're called sum. You can even write them with a capital letter to make it more visually clear. So here we type sum open parenthesis, col3 close parenthesis, and also sum open parenthesis, col4 close parenthesis. And you'll probably notice the function gets underlined in red, and it's telling you that you need to do something. What exactly? You need to group the data, because right now the formula doesn't know how to organize the summation, which column to group the results by. These two columns are being summed up but the formula doesn't know how to group them. So we'll need to group by this one, column 2. To do that, we add one more part to the formula. This is our third block, so to speak. We write group by column 2, and we write col2. Let's press enter and see what we get. Now you can see that all the data from each block, from each month, has been summed up. To double check it, let's look at the numbers for Ali's. 1,000, 200 and 2,000. That makes 3,200. Then we have 1,300. Now it's 4,500. And 800 plus 2,000. That's 2,800. In the next month, Alice continues with another 950 plus another 950. So what do we get? It comes out to 6,750. Looks correct. That was a simple manual check. Not really our level anymore, but still useful sometimes. And now, with just one formula, we've calculated the total for each of our sellers, both the sum and the number of sales. And whenever a new sale gets added, you'll see that the total updates automatically. No matter how many new rows we add, or which month they belong to, the function will handle it all. And the last thing I want to show you today is how to rename the column headers. As you've probably noticed, right here the column names were generated based on what we wrote in the formula, and they're not very accurate. Let's adapt our formula so we can have proper column headers here. The first thing I want to do is break our formula into blocks to make it easier to read. We'll place the cursor at the beginning of our first block, so to speak, and press Ctrl plus Enter. That moves the formula to a new line. Now let's do the same at the end of that block. Another Ctrl plus Enter. This becomes our second block. Then we add a third block. And now let's create a fourth block for the column labels. If I press Enter now, you'll see nothing changes. The function still works. But for us as humans, it's much easier to read this way. Since the formula can grow to the size of actual programming code, it's always better to break it down into parts like this. In the fourth block, we'll write one more parameter. It's called label. This tells the formula that we want to assign names to some of the columns we've selected. The columns are the ones we chose here. col2, some col3, some col4, or just one of them if we prefer. Let's do this. I'll take some column 3 and we'll write open single quotes and type total sales. Now let's press enter and see what happens. You'll notice only our second column has changed its name. Perfect. Let's continue and do the same for some column 4, but be careful. If you try to type col4, you'll get an error because there is no col4 anymore. There's only some colon 4 dash, and that's exactly what we need to name. Let me show you an example. If I type just col4 and press enter, the formula breaks. See? It tells us this column doesn't exist. So let's fix that. We write some open parenthesis, column 4, close parenthesis, press enter, and now we have the correct column name. Just like that, you can build clean and useful analytical reports with the right labels. And honestly, this is just 10%, maybe even only 5% of what the query function can do. In future videos, I'll show you a lot more tricks and features. For now, we can even format our small report to look a bit nicer. Maybe add some color to improve the appearance. And as you can see, if we add a new person to the dataset, they're automatically included in the total sales. I'll leave the spreadsheet with the formula in the description of this video. If you liked the video, give it a thumbs up. And if you don't want to miss new lessons, subscribe to the channel. That's all for now. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.